What's up, Raptor fans? Tonight, we got a unique duo. It's me, Aiden Moss, and Mr. Zarar himself. How are you doing, Zarar?
I'm enjoying Pascal Siakam. That was about it, though.
Yeah, limited highlights tonight, a lot of lowlights. This was a stinker almost right from the get go. If you like basketball, generally watching someone like Tyrese Maxey go into the stratosphere was cool. But otherwise, this was a painful one to watch. Toronto got smashed by Embiid-less Philadelphia 76ers, which you didn't. I don't know about you, Zarar. Certainly did not anticipate that thumping.
No, not at all. Not at all. This one was like you would think this would be like a walk in the park Friday night, head into the weekend, feeling good about yourself. One of those games, and it turned out nothing. And it started off with like Maxey going off, and then you're like, he can't possibly keep this up. Like this is like a first quarter streak. He's gonna cool down. The Raptors are the better team. They're gonna come back and complete this. But no, it wasn't to be. The guy had like what? I think I stopped watching him when he had 42 points. I don't know how
Nine
much.
threes.
10 threes?
Nine.
9 threes. So there you go. And we got to say, man, the Raptors defense, all that length ain't worth anything if you're leaving the wrong guy open.
Yeah. I will give Toronto the benefit of the doubt early. They actually had multiple good defensive possessions, and it just ended. The first three of the game was literally Maxey. I think it was Van Vliet, like in Maxey's shorts. Like it was just a nice shot. A couple of other possessions happened like that where it was a good 23 seconds of defense, and we just let someone score better offense. And it seemed like that took the air out of their tires immediately. And I think, to your point about the Raptors' length, the Raptors' strength, all of that, none of that matters if you're not going to put effort in. And it seemed like once Maxey got hot, the sustained effort of Toronto just went away. And things kind of broke down from there.
Yeah, I think it broke down on. I think that 3-point shooting was not great. Like sometimes you can counter a hot player if somebody on your team is hot, but it became quite evident that Pascal and OG to some degree were the only two guys who were sort of going for them. But now I'll go back to the Raptors defense. Like some of those, like I get a player is hot, but there are too many instances. And if you go to the Raptors Republic Twitter account, I was posting on there tonight, and I posted at least like 3 or 4, or at least 3 plays where the Raptors defensively just lost track of Maxey with no excuse. Like I think his last 3 was a good example where Harden, who's having a so-so game, gets doubled way behind the 3-point line, and Maxey kind of like just goes over like 6 feet away from him, and Barnes is late. Boucher's kind of late on the other side, and they hit a 3. So, it's early season. These are things you got to work out. It's just that sometimes I'm surprised that the Raptors, who are considered a good defensive team, can have such, seemingly obvious lapses. And it's easy for two guys sitting here to say, "Hey, man, defensive lapse," but it doesn't jive with the narrative that the Raptors are a good defensive team, which they are. So it doesn't jive.
They look tired, which I don't know if it's excusable. They've played 5 games since Friday, I want to say. And so I don't know. Yeah, like we've been monitoring the minutes they've been playing, which is a lot. They've been playing some high intensity, high energy games. They just came in flat. Scotty looked like meh, but Precious looked disinterested. It took a while for Boucher to get going. Freddie looked exhausted. He just wasn't moving very well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, these games happen. At the same time, from a larger perspective, coming into this game, these are the games we need to win if we consider ourselves the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. Like, you got to go in at home on a 2-game series without a superstar and smash the other team. Like, there's really just no excuse for that. And to me, that's what's more concerning out of all of this is just there wasn't that killer instinct from from a team perspective.
And sometimes I think even they're human beings just like us, and sometimes they look at Embiid is out and they feel the job just got easier. And this happens all the time, right? Where the main guy's out and other people step up and surprise the team that expected it to be maybe an easy ride. So that's on the Raptors for underestimating the Sixers tonight. But I was like, if you want to talk about maybe a couple of positives before we get into the many negatives, it was Pascal Siakam, man. Like the guy is just phenomenal. I think I counted like 3 moves he did, which he did not do consistently last year. Like his fakes when he backs people down are just tighter. They're more difficult to anticipate. Even when he catches the ball like further out at the 3-point line, the old Pascal would maybe just settle and kind of take like a 21 footer or going. But this one kind of backs you down. He knows who's guarding him. He knows which direction he has to go. He knows where the help defense is coming from. And now that he's sort of putting all these things together, he's looking quite unstoppable. It's early days, but he's looking quite good.
Yeah, the defender recognition thing is something that really stands out to me. When his shots go up, I expect them to go in now, which is also a sign of where like I feel like Siakam is in just general NBA, hierarchy. But yeah, he's a predator now that toys with his prey. He sees who he gets on the switch, who he has. Like if it's PJ Tucker, he's like, okay, juice. If he gets a switch and it's Maxey on him, like let's go. There doesn't seem to be anybody that he's all that daunted with. It's more that he's not executing on the shot itself. Like he can basically get anywhere he wants. That being said, he had 5 turnovers, I want to say. At least 2 were pick sixes, which were like pretty lazy. Just like inexcusable. And it's those kinds of plays that absolutely zap an already lackluster team of any energy that they had left, So he wasn't fully perfect, but he certainly carried this team to some degree. I'll also say, actually, if you have anything else to say on Pascal, please.
Well, I don't mind his turnovers, to be honest with you. I think for a guy that handles the ball as much as he does, and the amount of ball handling he does, and given that he's relatively new to being a primary ball handler, and given that he produces so much, I think turnovers are sort of expected. Maybe they're at a slightly higher rate than you would want, but I think in terms of the ratio of ball handling to turnovers is still pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Like we tend to look at assist to turnovers a lot and evaluate ball handlers using that. I remember Jose Calderon way back in the day had like the league leading assist to turnover ratio. That was his like calling card, right? That was his thing. And with today's NBA, I don't know what the stat is, but I think the amount you handle the ball has to be considered. So I'm actually fine with this turnovers. And also when you're turning the ball over, it also means you're taking some risks in your passing. And I think we all want that. We don't want Pascal to sort of always look for the obvious pass. If you're going to be a full-time ball handler, you will have to thread the needle a couple times or like take a gamble here. Those to me are good things. So his turnovers have never been, or this year are not even I barely notice those.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. Like if you're going to suddenly be such a high usage guy like Pascal is, you're going to have turnovers. I just mean there were a couple like top of key passes where they actually just got picked off, and you're like, what are you doing? But yeah, Pascal is just an absolute wonder to watch. Another guy who I absolutely love watching, who played very well tonight, and who really was the only one that had sustained energy, was OG Anunoby. He mentioned at the beginning of the game or the pregame that he's got his eye on the Defensive Player of the Year award, and recognition of OG internationally wide, league wide, has been a long time coming. The Matisse Thybulle hype has gone and passed. Thank God. Jesus, that was awful. And we saw OG in full form tonight. Like when him and Freddie did those double teams on the corners, which is hilarious to me. Like it happened 3 or 4 times, and yet Harden continued to walk into the exact same spot each time and get sniped with the double and barely get out of it. But when OG clamped down on it, it was just like Harden had nowhere to go. OG seemed to be all over the place tonight, and I just love watching him on the defensive end.
Yeah, with OG, I think it's sort of like he's settling into. I think the fan expectations of OG have always been sort of very I don't know, volatile. Let's say yes. Some people expect him to be kind of like Pascal 2.0. Some people expect him to be like a 3-and-D player. but he's probably somewhere in the middle, right? Like he's not so limited in his skill that he's only a 3-and-D guy. That would be selling him short. But at the same time, he's not as fluid as Pascal is. And the OG we saw today is probably the OG that's sort of best for this group of Raptors. The guy who's forcing that steal he had on Harden was, I really thought that was going to get the Raptors back in the game at the time. So he's contributing all over the all over the place. So I got no problems with OG, man. The people who hate on OG just either like I don't know what they expect of the guy. Like he's not going to be Pascal level player anytime soon, but he's still a pretty damn good player. And his name comes up the most in trade talk. And I've always maintained if OG's going out in a trade, like somebody like better than OG should be coming back. And I don't really see that happening on the market.
Yeah, I've talked about this before. The weird thing about OG is he's not like a top tier player in the NBA per se. But there's very few players I'm trading him straight up for, only because if you look at every single team in the NBA, they're often missing one piece, and that's the wing defender, the wing shooter, the wing like versatile guy, and OG fits the mold on all of those. Yes, we want him to evolve into a Pascal light, and it's very possible he will. He is still very young. And he's missed a lot of time. He came off an ACL tear in college. He's had a lot of injuries in his young career. There's a lot wrong with his game, and the last 2 weeks of my articles highlighted them quite explicitly. That being said, what he does on the floor, like defensively, just generally, but like offensive rebounding, shooting, all of like finishing in the lane, those kinds of things, like they are vital to this team's success. And he exemplified it tonight, really. Like he looked really good tonight.
I don't know. I don't know if I saw OG bringing the ball up the court much. Maybe a couple possessions, but I don't remember this being a sticking point for me. The other thing about OG, the one you when you were running down all the good things he does. The other thing is that he's low shot demand guy. Like you don't have to feed him the ball. He knows how to operate without hogging the ball or needing the ball. And that's a skill in itself. There are some guys who will only be a good defensive player if they get the ball enough. OG doesn't even need that. So he's by default, he comes in with being a strong defensive player. So that's also a big positive for him. So, I got no problem with OG and Pascal, man. Those were the two good guys today. But people here in the comments, man, I'm just reading them. I'm not sure who some people are really ripping on Fred. Let's talk about Fred, I guess.
Okay.
What was your take on Fred?
The thing about Fred, so in the chat, they're talking about role recognition. And I think Freddie in the past year and now this year is still juggling with what that means for him. And, his usage has gone way down. His assists have gone way up. And I think that's the sweet spot for Freddie. And yet sometimes he tries to do too much still. And you saw it a lot tonight where he's hoisting way too deep. He's just kind of like begging for a bucket and like expecting it to go in without really engendering it in a like organic way. And that's when I'm really frustrated by Freddie. Like that's not really something Lowry ever did. And I know it's not necessarily fair to compare the two, but that's the role he needs to play essentially, is be the deferential secondary, tertiary scorer on the team, take over when they need him to. And he's not very good yet at choosing those moments wisely and doing it in a way that fits the flow of the offense. And tonight, like it was very, very obvious. Usually he hits one or two of those desperate threes and you're like, oh, and you can't really get mad about it. But when he goes 0 for whatever it was, it really stands out.
Yeah, that's his game, though. I think that's been his game for the last two years, I'd say, as he has decided to sort of not attack the rim. Because if you remember, if you rewind 2 years, the complaint against Fred was that when he drives, it's predictable and he gets stuffed at the rim. So his finishing was poor about a couple of years back. That was his primary complaint.
Still pretty bad.
Right? And since then, he has adjusted and he's moved back and added an arc to his shot, and he's become a good three-point shooter. Today, the shots aren't falling, but that's okay. Shots fall, shots don't fall. Like we've seen games like this from Fred before. It's defensively, I thought he was not good, especially against Harden. Harden got by him, and I know it's James Harden, great player, all that stuff, but couple of possessions where he really put Pascal in a vulnerable position by not holding his own with Harden, who wasn't even doing his like 8 dribble, waist block move. It was just like Harden just not even trying to drive that much and getting past Fred. So that did not sit right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you with the like those are his shots. I just kind of I differ with the selection. It's like when, how, what time. Like it's not very flowy. But yeah, his defense did look off. He just looked flat-footed. He looked tired, and I know he went into the locker room late in the second quarter when he got subbed off. So I don't know if I think Alvin and Devlin were speculating on, it could have been sick, could have had a little nagging injury or something, but he didn't look his normal self. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Who did look his normal self and yet didn't. Do you have anything else to say on Freddie?
Well, no, I was going to talk about 3-point shooting, but no, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this will kind of lead to 3-point shooting. Who did look normal and good, but didn't play much in the fourth quarter was Scotty Barnes, which is like I don't know what happened,
man.
Huh?
I disagree on his good game. I don't think he had a good game.
I
thought he took like he had some good like bailout shots early on where he kind of bailed the Raptors out on at the tail end of a clock, but he took some questionable shots in 1v1 situations early in the shot clock, which did not help our generally stagnant offense. And then defensively, I thought he was a culprit on a few of the MAXEY threes. He did not know where he was. Even the three that I described earlier, where they doubled Harden, it was Scotty's job to go over. And even Scotty and Fred were not on the same page, and that resulted in at least a couple MAXEY threes where they both like kind of magneted to the guy who's rolling towards the basket and left the wing guy open. And it's not like it was early in the game. This was like when MAXEY had already hit like 5 threes. So not great communication between Barnes and Fred as well. Yeah, Barnes had a good offensive game, but at some point, but I'm not happy with this game.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. But I did think early on he looked good or like good enough, and especially when no shots were falling, he was 4 for 7 in the game, 3 for 4 from 3, which is like very irregular. In the fourth quarter, our defense is tight, but we're not scoring. I would have thought he would come in earlier, and he didn't. So that kind of surprised me. Precious Achiuwa also didn't come in at all in the fourth quarter. To me, he looked very bad. And actually, I could say this about most of the guys on the team is that what was beautiful to watch in the Philly game on Wednesday was the ball movement, the teamwork on offense, the obviously the transition. They didn't have a single transition fast break bucket in the first half in today, whereas yesterday or on Wednesday they had a ton. They didn't have any turnovers in the first half on Wednesday. They had a ton today. So the coherency of the team was missing tonight. And that, to me, that was really obvious on the offensive end where everybody was just trying to get theirs. Like Precious is just like looking at the hoop, kind of jabbing and pumping, faking, whatever. And then it's just ugliness. And to your point, Scotty did that a little bit too, although he hit them. But yeah, it just everybody kind of looked like they had television on and they were out of sorts.
Yeah. Well, this is so if you look at the Raptors issues from the like their weaknesses, it has like all 3 came out today. All 3, like in spades. 3-point shooting, I think they were like 22% compared to Philly's 42. Our producer's not here so today, so nobody knows how to get the box score up anymore. So 3-point shooting was 1. Second, bench scoring, I think they had like 16 points and Philly had like 25 somewhere around that. So that was not good. And finally is the backup point guard question. When Fred doesn't have it going on, which he didn't tonight, who's stepping up? Malachi Flynn, Delano Banton looks like he's a pretty good preseason player. But neither of those two are really reliable backups. And Aiden, at the start of the show, you said like if we have like contending aspirations, and our backup point guard position is quite suspect.
Yeah, I wrote about this today, sadly, in our 5 things about the natural regression of our 3-point shooting. We were shooting 46% from our catch and shoot threes. So, it was going to go back down, and it came crash back down hard tonight. I did say, though, that we're better equipped this year to adapt to when we're not shooting well. And there was ample opportunity to win this game regardless of our shooting. The 3 things you mentioned as vulnerabilities is true, but the things that we're typically good at, we also didn't do. Like offensive rebounding was down, forced turnovers into transition was down. Like, it was kind of everything across the board. But I do agree with you with the bench and the shooting, and I do think Malachi Flynn deserves more reps. Oren highlighted this with Nurse's rotations, which is like quite irritating to me now. Like someone has called me out about Thaddeus Young. We'll get to him, but like Thad gets like 2 minutes, Banton gets a little bit, then Flynn gets a little bit. Like there's just no consistency on the rotations. Like how is a guy supposed to find his like vibes if he's going in and out at like at an unpredictable pace? Like it's just not healthy for any young player to get his footing.
Yeah, it seems, but Nick Nurse has always sort of done this, right? I mean, early seasons up until December, he's always kind of had wonky lineups where he's sort of kind of seeing what fits where. So this is not new for Nick Nurse. He's done this before, and the lineups generally have stabilized later on in the season. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but that's not too surprising for me. It seems like Nurse is when his substitutions are very reactionary. He's on the defensive a lot, especially when he's down. Like today, he was kind of searching for answers on any lineup that could contain Philly. So I can see why he threw out Malachi Flynn, threw out Delano Banton, just to see if anything worked, because defensively, nothing much was working. So, on the flip side, if he hadn't done that, I think some of the comments tonight, or we might say, well, he should have tried Flynn and Banton if one of them wasn't working. So it kind of cuts both ways for me.
Yeah, I just think Flynn does have more potential. Like we just have kind of written him off, and Nurse does seem to harbor like I don't know, not resentment, but disdain for certain
Worse than
players.
resentment, I think.
Like Yuta Watanabe last year is a perfect example of who to me seems like with what you have available could be a fine answer. And I think Flynn is the same here. MAXEY is no brilliant guy on defense, right? Like it's not like I understand that our defense was like we needed somebody to step up defensively, but no one was playing good defense. So let's bring out a guy who can at least create offensively and shoot and maybe give a spark to this team. I think Flynn's defense is underrated. Like I don't think he's like absolutely atrocious. He can kind of sustain himself despite his size. And I just think that Nurse is not. And I've talked about this before, but growing up I was a big Steve Nash Phoenix Suns fan. Mike D'Antoni was the same way. He only worked with 7 guys, sometimes 8, and it really went back to bite him in the ass. Like you've got to take your losses early, playing these guys and letting them flex their muscles and get the reps later down the road when you're going to need them, when it's injury or whatever else. And I think he's doing a disservice to these guys by just like plugging them in and out.
I gotta, I don't know if you take comments at the end or whatever, but I watch them and I feel like reacting to them because
Let's do it.
Like this,
Read it out.
increasing OG's role is hurting this team. Siakam and Scotty leading the team got us to the playoffs last year. By the way, we didn't do crap in the playoffs, so that's not really a great, target. I don't think there's been a deliberate strategy to increase OG's role. I think that has been a narrative that came in the offseason where somebody said, oh, OG's not happy with his role, and that was debunked in training camp. So I don't think the Raptors have generally had a let's give OG more touches strategy. Have you noticed anything like that? Or
so first play of the game, they try to post him up, and Pascal turned the ball over. No, and in fact, I would argue that they're not doing it in a proper way. Like I think I'm sure they're encouraging OG to cook. Like the same way they're doing it to Precious, the same way they're doing it to Scotty. But I would argue that they're not doing it. They should be doing it in a more precise way, which is posting OG up, getting him moving off the ball, and getting him the ball while he's moving to like attack downhill. Like that's where I've always had beef with how Nurse operates his offense is he doesn't set players up to in a way that accentuates what they're good at in their offense. Instead, they're like, okay, OG, like sure, you've got the ball now, like you can try and do your stuff, and he doesn't really do his stuff. He's not that good at it right now. And so like I wouldn't say that that's what's happening right now, that like OG suddenly getting a ton of reps and it's hurting us. I would say generally that Nurse lets a lot of guys try and operate, including Freddie, including Precious, including Scotty.
Yeah. And I've been saying about OG post ups for like, I don't know, 4 years now, that he's the Raptors' best post up player. Maybe not anymore with Siakam, how good he's become, but he's certainly like the strongest post up guy at his position that we have, I think. The issue with posting up OG, and I've thought about this a little bit, is that posting up OG is counter to what the Raptors want to do as a team. Like if you are doing, if you're posting your wings up, you're automatically slowing the game down a little bit. And in OG's case, it probably works better for him because he is a good post up player. He's stronger than most. He can get his shot up against pretty much anybody at his position. But what it has the effect of doing is it has the effect of sort of slowing the game down a little bit. So what's in OG's best interest offensively in terms of what he's good at is not necessarily aligned with the Raptors' overall strategy of like run and gun and keep the pace high. And those two things have always been sort of at tension with each other. And even now, like 3-4 years later, it's still sort of unresolved.
Yeah. I think they don't do a lot of set offenses that, put guys in certain situations for that very reason, that they want to be more flowy, more read and reacty, whatever. And that's fine. But I do think that they can get some motion offenses that get, like Scotty needed that last year. He doesn't really need it this year, but OG still needs it. I think Precious could use it. Like, I think there are ways to get these guys. This is not really answering the question anymore, but I think there are ways to get these guys with the ball in their hands in a dynamic position on the move without a set defense just like in their faces,
We're gonna get to Greg's question next. He's got a good question about Precious' level of effort, but I think there's also a couple of people talking about the zone defense that has hurt.
I actually liked our offense against the zone yet on Wednesday and today.
Same here. I like it wasn't, we shot the ball poorly. I get it, but I liked the Raptors flashing Siakam to the top of the key and putting him in sort of good decision making positions, because top of the key is where you want to catch it, because you get to see the whole court, left side, right side, and you get to evaluate. And I thought he made good decisions there. I thought the Raptors' ball movement after he had caught the ball was a bit poor sometimes, but overall I like their approach to the zone. They usually don't handle the zone well, and they end up settling for deep shots. But today I thought they were a little bit better. What do you think?
I totally agree. General principles breaking a 2-3 zone is you crush it with 3-point shooting. If that's not happening, you get it in the high post and you kind of like cut it out at the belly. But then on top of that is also a lot of ball movement. On Wednesday, that was what was happening, especially the like Barnes kept finding that baseline cut or like in the dunker spot, and they were just, eating them alive. And Embiid was way too slow to react to it. And Pascal's sweet spot is that high post. Like he really cooks down there. So in my opinion, having the zone in some ways is kind of like conducive to what we want. It gives Pascal that space to operate without a convergence. And if there is a convergence, no problem, he's going to find the open guy. Similarly to Scotty, Scotty's his own little ecosystem, his own little like play hub that I think Lou wrote about today. And it's true, like, especially this year, Scotty has become this dynamic offensive player. And he, too, is best in that like high post spot where he wants to pass first. He can see the entire court from there, or he can just shoot a 12-foot jumper, which he's very comfortable with. I think you hit it on the head. Their ball movement sucked. Like, the shooting wasn't there, so be it. But they just weren't really picking apart Philly like they were on Wednesday.
Yeah. We're going to get to some more questions like immediately, but I think this might be a good time to plug the site, the subscription model that we have going. You mentioned the Lou article. Definitely check it out. It's a Lewis is a freaking brilliant writer, man. It's some of the best stuff on the internet belongs to Lewis. So this is the piece that he wrote today. He broke down Scotty quite well. Go check it out if you're a fan of the show. If you like Raptors Republic, support us. We're trying to be independent. We're trying not to get taken over by big media. And so yeah, if you got $6 on you per month, you get to read Samson, Lou, Aiden, all those guys. So check it out. John Smith, thank you for subscribing. We love it. Okay, let's get to more questions. I think that's it.
Matt Hogg's on my ass about Thad, so let's talk about that.
He's got a few questions. What's up with you and Thad? I mean, what do you
I think I've always been a big Thad fan, and I defended him. He does look a step slow. I will admit that. I think, to me, the biggest problem has not necessarily been Thad himself, but that Koloko has bumped him in the rotation, and so there's really no space for him anymore. And I didn't really foresee that coming. I thought Birch was going to maybe step aside and Thad was going to replace Birch. I didn't really think Koloko was going to be a big part of this picture. And again, Thad's not really getting enough time to really operate. I think I want to say against maybe Brooklyn, he had like a couple of good minutes. But yeah, I mean, I can't really defend that. He hasn't really done all that much, but he also hasn't played all that much because Koloko has looked so dynamic. So how about we split the difference there, Matt?
I don't think he's going to split the difference with you, buddy. He wants it all. I think he wants it all. And yeah, I mean, you're in a tough position defending Thad right now because the guy is. I honestly, I see the veteran presence and all that stuff. I just don't see from a basketball perspective what he does. I know last time that you and I were on this show together, you were talking about how like he's very good at like moving the ball around, like the ball doesn't get stuck with him, and like he's a good swing. He's like a good intermediary guy. So and he can do that. But you know what? I think that's setting the bar too low for the minutes that a Raptor team that's hoping to contend will get. That's a position that like needs to be better. Like what's his 3-point shooting? Because that's the redeeming stat here. If you're poor at some of the other things, but you can hit your three, maybe you'll get some playing time. But I don't think he's a great 3-point shooter. And defensively, he's okay. But if everybody on the team is playing poor defense, like Barnes, Fred, Achua, who we're going to get to next, Thad is sort of irrelevant, man. Like if the front door is open, doesn't matter if the window's closed.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I did think with the reserves, he could kind of be that like small playmaking hub that Scotty served as, and he may still yet, but it looks like he might be just sitting for the rest of the year. I do think there is value in having a veteran like him, like professional veteran. Like I had the luxury of talking to him in Victoria, and like the guy is a very intelligent, very experienced NBA player. So I will just say that there is value perhaps in him being there on the bench teaching these guys. But I will take the loss that he's perhaps not going to get as much.
I think you took it like a man there. I think that's good. I think you just got to take it in. There's no splitting the difference today. Okay, good.
Dad still has a chance.
Okay. Let's go with this one. Can we talk about Precious's level of effort? That's a good point because he does look a little disconnected. I don't want to judge a man just by his his facial expressions, but sometimes those say a lot. How can he go from grabbing 20 plus boards one game to getting beat off the dribble by Niang in the next game? Did he even break a sweat? Yeah. I think even Alvin Williams at some point kind of mentioned this, that you can't have a guy like Niang just blow by you. It's sort of unacceptable. And you know that Precious has it in him to defend it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not questioning effort. I'm just questioning, what's another word for effort?
I just want to know, like, does anybody have intel on what was going on last night? Because this feels like those guys were hungover collectively, right? Like everybody just kind of seemed out of it.
Yeah.
Like Scotty and Precious are both guilty of this. It's typical with youth. It's like you need something external to get your internal fire like raging. And you see it with Scotty when it's on, and you also see it very clearly with Scotty when it's off. Pascal's was a little bit like that, and we are now seeing that professionalism take over where he is killer instinct style. And so it might just take some time for guys like Precious and Scotty to lock in on the regular. Like that might just be the simple answer. I know it's not that satisfying, and I'm disappointed as well because this is an opportunity for Precious to really take a huge step forward. But I think if you miss a couple shots or you screw up early, like you just kind of lose. I don't know if anybody experiences when you play, but like when you don't see the ball go in, sometimes your defense slips a little bit.
That's not a good trait.
No, it's not, but it does happen psychologically.
You know
right?
who that never happens to?
OG.
That's right.
I know. But OG is built differently, and he is mentally tough. I mean, there's no question about OG's like mental toughness. So I don't know. To me, that's the best answer I have because there doesn't seem to be anything else like, informative telling me that why he would or wouldn't be locked in.
Yeah.
He should be roasting this Philly team.
Exactly. And what's concerning to me, it's not the effort, whatever, I don't want to get into, I don't want to make assumptions about that. I'm not an insider, so I don't know that. What is interesting is that his 3-point shooting is freaking off, man. Like 0 for 3 tonight. He's shooting 24% for the season. It's 4 for 17 he is now on the season. And these shots aren't like rimming out. They're not like rattling out. Some of them have been like really bad misses. And that's the concern that I have for Precious, because I think a lot of projections about the Raptors this year assumed that his second half of the season last year would sort of, if not extrapolate into something bigger, but at least remain that way in terms of 3-point shooting. And that hasn't been the case yet. I don't know if you think that's just a matter of time, or what do you think there?
Yeah, I don't think he's not a good 3-point shooter. Like I'm not confident to say that. So you're going to get the ebbs and flows. And again, like sometimes you get in these funks. Gary's been in them too. Like you don't see the ball go in, and it perpetuates itself cyclically. But I think the one way you burst out of these funks, and Boucher has figured this out last year. Again, like Boucher's another good guy where he's an energy dude, and in his early days, he looked kind of weird and out of sorts. And then last year in the second half, he figured it out. It's like, okay, I'm going to get paid, and I'm going to get paid because I'm always going to be the energy guy no matter what. And that takes some time. And I think Precious, like he needs to figure out that, like, okay, the ball's not going in the hoop. My ISOs aren't all that successful. I got to crash the boards, and I got to get a couple of layups, and I got to draw some fouls and go from there. And I think like a little bit over time, he'll figure that out.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, let's see. I honestly, I don't know what's going on with him, but he does look a little off. Okay, so we got a few more here.
There's been a question about free throw shooting.
There's a couple questions about free throw shooting. So want to tackle that one?
Well, okay. I mean, what do you want me to say? Like free throw shooting also, so they say, is a psychological shot, right? Like there's no reason why elite professional players should be missing a wide open 12-foot shot on the regulars, particularly someone like Pascal, who doesn't have Shaquille O'Neal hands or whatever. I don't know, lack of concentration, fatigue, indifference. I don't know. Like, what do you want? I don't know what the answer is. It's not really all that excusable.
I mean, we're not a good shooting team, period. We don't shoot the three well. We don't. I don't. I mean, well, your free throw shooting will more or less track your 3-point shooting.
Our top 5 guys are good shooters. They're above average shooters.
I'm talking about 3-point shooting. Like I'm not talking about like field goal shooting. I'm talking about
they all. I would. Freddie's above average. OG's above average. Gary's above average. Pascal and Scotty are getting to above average.
Okay, let's dig into this. Well, Fred was 1 for 3 from the free throw line. Pascal was 7 for 9. That's not horrible, but yeah, I get it.
7 for 9, solid.
Yeah, and Chris Boucher missed 2, and we went 1 for 3. Did we lose this game because of the free throws?
No, I mean it is an issue in the regular or in the preseason. It was like really bad and obvious, and they have been notorious. Like I agree with you. Like it has been a thing that has popped up here and there, especially Pascal. But again, fatigue is a big thing on free throws. And these dudes, if there's anybody that's going to get tired towards the end of the games, it's going to be the 5 Toronto Raptors that are playing predominantly in these games.
Hey, I got David Griffith. Great David Griffiths has a good question. It's how do you suggest we defend Maxey and Harden combo in the future? Harden will get used to the traps and punish us for it eventually, like he did at the end of the game.
I mean, that's a tough question. They didn't figure it out in the playoffs last year, that's for sure. I like OG on Harden. I think we're fine there. I they I don't know what the answer is with Maxey. He's so quick, and his shot, not only is his 3-point shooting like at an elite level now, but it seems to me that his pull up shot is becoming increasingly damaging. I think it's this kind of thing where you let one guy cook and you try and take out the other guys as best you can, and that has been the recipe for success. Like on Wednesday, for example, right? Like you're not going to win these one-on-one battles with extremely good offensive guys. So you try and take guys out of the game. They take Harden out of the game. They took Embiid out of the game as best they could, and you try and let one guy kind of cook you.
Yeah,
it's not the best answer, but
I mean, and I think if that guy has to be Harden, I don't think I like OG on Harden too. I also think Fred on Harden should theoretically work. Like it should not be as bad as it was today. Today, as you said, maybe I don't know what happened last night with these guys, but they looked a step slow. And I think you actually have multiple options for Harden. Obviously, you have Siakam if you want to go that route, but that's kind of like throwing your best defender at him. OG or Fred, I think, should work. So when they are running their little screens at the top, we do have some switch options there, which we should probably utilize. In terms of Maxey's a guy who's sort of new on the scene still, right? Like we don't know, like he's showing us stuff that we didn't see last year. I think the scouting report is not out on Maxey yet. It will be later on this year. So I think the question that David Griffiths is posting here is a question on a lot of people's mind. And I think once his scouting report comes out and teams kind of figure him out, he's not going to have games like this again. But to answer your question about Maxey, I don't see any Raptor defending him one-on-one. Maybe Siakam by giving him some space, but that seems like a waste of Siakam.
Yeah, right? I think you throw Gary on him. One way you try and punish these guys is on the offensive end. It's just like you try and put Maxey through a ton of pain and punishment in screens and switches, and just try and get him to foul trouble or try and get him off his game by just putting him on his back heels and like punishing him. And I think that can work in the future when we're trying to like make Maxey less of a threat.
Yeah, it's a good point because his offensive game is predicated on a lot of movement. The guy does not stay still. Like he uses up a lot of energy on the offensive side, just running. He reminds me a little bit of Rip Hamilton, to be honest with you, like the way he utilizes screens and runs around a lot. So good point that if you tire him out defensively a little bit more, maybe he's not so active offensively. That could be one strategy. But
he also, I would be curious to know what his numbers were in transition. I think he probably off the top of my head, I can think of 9 points at least, right?
Yeah.
And that's by virtue of like poor transition defense, poor shooting, turnovers. So it's the kind of thing that he won't necessarily have that kind of those kinds of nights when the game has slowed down and we're being more responsible.
Thank you, Phoenix Play Z. We got to talk. Boy. The guy, he reached deep into his pocket. Now you got to spend $4 more to get the subscription.
That won't even get me on the TTC.
Scotty didn't post up once this game. Okay, you take it.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Who would you rather? Who is a more efficient post up, Scotty or OG?
I want both of them posting up. I wanted Pascal to post up. I don't really have to worry about that anymore. I want these guys to. The thing is one of the luxuries of having so many wing defenders is there's going to be a mismatch. It's just like inevitable. And there seems to be a philosophy from Nurse's core thinking that these guys need to learn how to operate in isolation. Like everybody kind of has the green light from the perimeter to go. and do their thing. And I just don't know that that's necessarily correct. Like OG and Scotty will always have a mismatch. One of them will, because somebody else like PJ Tucker is guarding Pascal. And like I think we should be exploiting that, and we don't. So even if it's high post, like the high low, we absolutely roast guys every time. Like Pascal and Scotty's, and even OG for that matter's ability to pass out of the post is at a very high level, and it makes us pretty deadly when we have guys cutting, and getting open.
Yeah, the Scotty in the post is interesting. I like seeing Scotty in the post just because I'm like I love the Miami game, the Eastern Conference low scoring game that we had there. I enjoyed it, so I'm a big fan of slowing the pace down. I think I enjoy the game better, to be honest with you, because you see sort of the chess pieces move in the half court and in the post up. You see the especially in Scotty's case, like he doesn't necessarily see doubles, but you kind of see him surveying the floor, trying to look for a pass. So I definitely enjoy the post up. I think this goes back to my earlier point about it's sort of antithetical to how the Raptors are built in terms of transition. I don't think they have yet found the balance of playing half court post up basketball versus trying to get on the run. So that's why I think you don't see it. But once a possession sort of breaks down, yeah, the post up is a good option. But here's the thing with it, man. The post up actually takes a little bit of time to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So if you spend the first 14 seconds, 10, 12 seconds of the shot clock trying to do something else, and then you realize, oh my God, it's only like 12 seconds left or 10 seconds left, let's go post up OG. That's not something you can do like that, because that requires, first of all, position to be established, the passer to have a good entry pass into the post. A couple of things need to happen for a post up to materialize. And I think the Raptors have currently a mentality where they're like, this possession will be a post up. This possession, we're going to do this. They don't necessarily have the dynamism where they are like, okay, things aren't working 12 seconds into this possession. Let's switch it up and look for a post up. Like they don't audible that. They kind of make up their mind what the possession will be before kind of like you're bringing the ball up the court. So I think that's maybe a learning point for the team.
Yeah. One of my favorite plays last year was the early post entry to OG, where he would just sprint down the court, seal his guy, and they would lob it into him. And I'd like to see more of that this year too. Like it doesn't have to be a slow thing. If you make like it a point of emphasis, in semi-transition or when you're getting down the floor, that it's immediate wing entry and then post entry, or getting Pascal or Scotty in that high post and then finding the low post guys or the guys in the dunker spots. Like there are ways in which you can get your offense in a natural flow that ends up with guys in the post. But they're just not really interested in it. I think they just don't seem to be interested in doing these like one-off plays as much as they are running the types of flowy offenses they have going on.
Yeah, man. Are we doing Taxman or anything like that? And
yeah,
let's wrap it up.
Let's do it. Can-Am. We have our Can-Am Taxman of the night, who we've now defined as being the most impactful player of the night. Can-Am Tax is now our sponsor for the second year in a row. They do personal and business taxes. You can check them out at canamtax.com. They'll take care of you. Tell them the Raptors Republic sent you. Zarar, why don't you do us the honors?
Taxman, I got to get a Pascal Siakam. Guy's been a joy to watch this season. I think it's a pretty obvious one. I think last time you guys made a joke like we should just call this award the non-Pascal Siakam Taxman of the night. So to make it a little bit more interesting, why don't we talk about who other than Pascal Siakam would deserve it? Because I think he's going to win in a lot of these nights.
I was going to give it to OG.
Okay, OG.
He looked like in the locker room before he went around and like captured the aura of every other player, bottled it and drank it. Like he had the energy of four players out there. He was everywhere. Even on like the block that Boucher had, OG came flying out of nowhere and double blocked it. Like I was surprised he only had 3 steals and blocks. Like I thought he had way more. And he played very well tonight, even though he didn't have the best shooting night.
Oh, by the way, I think we should have like another like kind of like a broader award, or not an award, like a notable moment, which is the Sam Mitchell 0000 award. When I think he was referring to Andrea Bargnani or somebody. I don't know. When is it, in the post game interview they asked him like, "Hey, what happened? Like, why'd you lose this game or whatever?" And he goes, "Well, we got guys out here, man. They're playing like 10 minutes and getting 0 0 0 0 0 0." So I'm going to give the 0 0 0 award to Malachi Flynn
I
today,
love that.
who in 5 minutes just went over everywhere, but did manage to break the zero with one personal foul, which shouldn't really count. So yeah, Malachi
So
Flynn with the 0 0 0 award.
I guess if you're going literal 0 0 0, that would be the award. I'm going to go with Precious Achua, 0 points, 0 for 6 from the field, and 2 turnovers to his 1 block and 1 assist. So that nets out to 0. And he had 3 boards, which is for him 0. So I'm gonna give the 0 0 0 award to Precious.
You got a new award.
I like it. I'm into it.
I like it. 0 0 0 award. The Sam. I think we should give it to Sam Mitchell. We should like give credit where credit is freaking due.
Yeah, we'll
man.
bring him on, and maybe he can choose one time.
Okay.
I think we're gonna leave it there because it's Friday and it's almost 11 o'clock. Thanks for joining me, Zarar. I really appreciate it. Oren's at the game. Sahal's doing whatever. Kyle, who knows? Probably cooking again. So appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining us. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to like us, subscribe to us. If you really want to, you can join our now new paywall for the website and buy a membership at a very reasonable $6 a month. We'd love to have
tax.
What?
Including tax.
Including tax. You can read, if it alone is worth reading, Samson and Lou. They're professional writers. Lou's the data guy. Samson's the X and O's guy. So you'll learn a lot from them. And then I'll give you the odd laugh or two. But it's really worth the money, and I suggest that. Otherwise, we'll catch you all Monday against the Atlanta Hawks in Toronto. I won't be there because I'll be at the game in my costume. So you have to look for me. Strong man. I'm a strong man. Catch you all later.